Hello and welcome to this video on Fusion 360. Now in this video we're going to be looking at the general user interface that you'll need to know to kind of understand where to start in Fusion. So I want to first go off about the most obvious thing is the top menu strip. You can see this is in the design workspace. There's actually a bunch of other workspaces that you can enter. Thing like generative design is not available for non-full version of Fusion. So if you've got the education license or if you've got the personal use license, you probably won't be able to use that. So the design workspace is where you do most of pretty much everything. So in Fusion, or pretty much any CAD package, you start off typically with a sketch. Then from that sketch you extrude 3D geometry. So that's pretty much all CAD packages. There might be a few that's different, but Fusion works the same way as a general kind of CAD sort of way. Anyway, so the render workspace is where you can create like photos of your part with nice lighting and environment maps. So like background, you can do depth of field, ambient occlusion, which is like the shadow underneath a part, and it renders it into a way that looks more realistic than this basic as if you were to model it in here. The animation workspace is just where you create like a 3D animations of, you can move the camera about and keyframe it with this timeline. So you can show how a part fits together, for example, like an exploded view coming together, and you can render it as a video. Simulation is where you, as you can see by this sort of like rainbow spectrum analysis, is where you can test your part. You can set the material of the part you create and see how it perform with point stresses and distributed loads. Where will it fail, for example? So you got manufacturer, for example, which I never really use because I don't have any use for it, so I can't really talk about it. But it's basically, I'm not sure why that keeps closing, but manufacturer is basically for like CNC machines, like milling machines, all that sort of stuff. Sheet metal works. Actually, sheet metal's here as well. So drawing is one thing I do use. So drawing, after you created your 3D model, you can create 2D drawings from your 3D geometry. You can set dimensions, the center of circles, radiuses, exploded views, isometric views, pretty much any view. Let's say you're building an IKEA furniture, and it has pictures of 2D drawings of the furniture. This is essentially, basically, how they did it. I'd imagine. Obviously, they probably don't use Fusion. They probably use some other package, maybe some proprietary thing. Not sure, but essentially, you can recreate IKEA furniture drawings essentially from that, if that makes it any easier to understand. So okay, so now most of the things you want to do is in the solid workspace. So there is rare instances I find myself going into surface, but it's so rare that I won't focus on it in this tutorial, or probably many tutorials, to be honest. Mesh is something that was recently come from the preview features, and now it's become a full feature. I had not much use of it, so I can't talk much about it. Tools, it's quite useful as well. Anyway, so one of the first things you want to do is set your units. So you can come over to this document settings, and you see that my units is in millimeter at the moment because I'm British and I use metric. So if you use inch, then you can set it to that, or any of these other ones. Obviously they're terrible, so don't use them. So The first thing you want to do is create a sketch. And to create a sketch, there's many ways. My favorite way, which I'm not going to teach right now because it is not very good way to start. I'm going to say do the proper way. So you can click this button, which is create sketch, or you can go to create and create sketch. I'm sure you can also press S, which is your shortcuts toolbox, and type in sketch, and you can click this. You can also right click and no, you can't do that. So that only works if you've already created one. You see repeat, change, active units. This would be whatever you did last, so it will show up there as well. So to create a sketch, you want to click on this, and you get 3 options. What plane do you want to start on? So do you want to start on the floor plane? Do you want to think of this as the wall? Do you want to start on the wall? It depends how you want to extrude it, in my opinion. So let's say you want to make something that will fit on the ground, or you want to look down on it. I would select this plane. So you give that 1 click. So now you have the option to create a line, 2-point rectangle, circle, and things like this, mirror, sketch dimension. These are not quite, you use these to, they don't make anything by themselves, but they do kind of define existing lines, for example. So let's say we create a box, and here we have the option to start from the center of the box, start from the corner top left, or this one, which I never use, but I do use these two. For this, I'm going to use the 2-point one, and we're going to start on the origin. Now this here with this circle kind of black and white indicates it's the origin, and don't think that that's not important thing to know, because the origin does play a big role in you'll find out as you get more experience in Fusion. So don't just start here. It's just you're just going to cause problems for yourself later on down the line. So if you're going to start, just start at the origin. If you're going to use the center box, start at the origin. Of course, there is very rare exceptions to that, but yeah, for the most part, just start to the origin. So you can see now we can type, and we can toggle between the 2 text boxes. You could either click anywhere and then redefine them afterwards, or you can type directly what you want. So let's say we want 100 by, I don't know, 200. We can tab between them and then press enter to confirm it. Okay, so you can see that this box is black at the moment, and that is quite important, because if it's not black, you'll see this line is blue. And you notice that these are still black, but these are 2 blue. This is because this corner has a constraint, and it's very, very recommended that you keep all lines of your design fully defined. Fully defined means that Fusion knows exactly how it should be scaled, for example. So this knows that it should start at the origin because it's got a coincident constraint. So if we go on here, you can see this is the same shape as that, coincident, which means it meets there, it connects, it touches, something like that. But this, and you see, coincident is meaning that line is meeting that line. But these are blue, so we never want to leave it. And I must admit, sometimes I do if I'm doing something extremely simple and I'm just extremely lazy, I leave it blue, which is not a good thing to do. So what you want to do is make sure you make these black. So why is this blue at the moment? It's blue because it doesn't know how tall it should be. So to fix that, we can go to our dimension. I prefer just to press D because it's quicker. We can press D and click on this line and make sure it doesn't do that. Press escape twice and press this line. So now we can type in 100, and you can see that blue line indicating it's not fully defined has gone away. But now we still have this blue line. This is because it doesn't know how long it should be. If you're ever unsure of what you need to do to make it fully defined or black, just grab the blue line and just move it about and see where does it go. If it moves, it shows you that it's not being constrained in that axis. So this means we need a dimension on this edge. So 200 is what we want, so press enter. So now it's fully defined. And you'll know it's fully defined, other than being black, is when you can't move it about. This is great. This is what we want. Okay, so let's say we want to create 2 holes in this sketch. There's kind of 2 ways you can go about this. 2 holes in a sketch and then extruding everything but the holes is one method, or you could create the box and make the holes afterwards. The advantage of doing it afterwards, after you created the extrusion, is that it creates a feature in the timeline so that you can go back and double click on this and change the settings from the past, which will be updated in the future. When you create everything in the sketch, you have to go back to the sketch and edit it there, which is fine, but it's one of those things that you'll come with experience, that sometimes you delete certain lines and then it's very difficult to kind of get exactly what you want. So anyway, regardless, let's create 2 holes. So we want to go to our circle tool or press C. One method you can do is draw a construction line, and to draw the construction line you press this button or press X. There's also a new feature which is center line, which is only been in a few versions. But anyway, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can click randomly and create it and type in how big we want it. Say we want it 20 mil. Also, it's great to mention right now is that even though our unit's in millimeter, when we don't specify a unit, it will assume that our units are in millimeters. However, we can force override Fusion's interpretation of the number by specifying a unit. So we can type in inch. So now Fusion's like, oh, inches. Okay. Or we could type in meters, and that's, obviously massive. Or we could actually type in the units that we're using and it will scale to that. Or we could just put nothing in, it will scale to that. Anyway, so I'm just going to put 20 because I like working in millimeters. So you now can see that this circle, as before, is not fully defined. It doesn't know where in this square it should be, so it's movable. So to make it fully defined, we need to go to dimension or sketch dimension by pressing D. Or you could click on that, obviously. And we're going to, where do we want to define the distance from the edge? Do we want to start from the edge of the circle, or do we want to start from the center of the circle? This obviously depends on what you're building and how you are measuring something maybe in real life. But for this tutorial, let's just say you want to do it from the center of the circle. What we can do, because it's not the default way that Fusion would do a circle, measure a circle for the sketch dimension, we want to right click the edge of the circle and click on pick circle arc tangent. This means it will define the distance from the edge, not the middle. So we're going to click here, and now the distance is from the edge of the circle to this edge. So we can click, I don't care about that. And now we can type something like, say, 10 mil. So we just type in 10. But you can see it's still blue. So to get over that, we can move it about. Oh, which way is it going, which it shouldn't be able to go? It's going up and down. So we can fix that by doing what we did before. We can right click after selecting sketch dimension and click tangent and click here. And type in something like 10. We could also, which is one of the good things with Fusion, possibly other CAD packages as well, we could actually hover over this and say we want it to match. You see it says D6. So what we could do is type in D6. That means now it's a function of this. So whatever we set this updates to the same exact value. Just like that. So another way what we can do is define it. Say we get rid of that dimension. Actually, let's go back. Instead of typing D6, we could type in a parameter, and then we could use our own parameter name in the future whenever we like. So we could type in wall dist or something equals 20. Now, if we hover over that, it says wall dist. Now we can type in wall dist here, and you can see that it shows up here. So we can click on that, click enter, and now whatever we make this, let's try something a little smaller than that. Let's try 50. This updates to match that. Okay, so that's enough for parameters, user parameters, or for example. Now let's say we want this circle to be in the center of the square. What we can do is select the line tool or press L, which is what I prefer. If you hover down this edge right now, you will see at a certain point, which is obviously the middle, you will get a triangle. This triangle means that we're in the center of this line. This is really handy because now we can use that. Let's just turn this back on. We can use that to draw a construction line. Now, I recommend turning construction line mode on, which doesn't do anything except show a dashed line to indicate its construction. So it doesn't change its performance, it just changes the appearance. But actually, that's a bit of a lie. But if you're selecting lines, the Fusion decides to ignore construction lines. So I do recommend using it, but you don't have to. It's not critical. It's just you will need to do more selections, which will make more sense if I show you after. Anyway, so what we're going to do is draw a line from this triangle. Let's say this, meaning that it's perfect in the middle. Now what we can do is go to midpoint. What we can do is select the center of this circle, and as you can see, this is not a construction line. It's a hard, fully solid line. It's because I messed up there. So if we click on the line and then we click construction now, it will turn it to the construction line. Now, as I was saying, we can make it so that this is bang on that line by hitting midpoint, selecting the circle, clicking this. Just one moment. Okay, this is not okay. Yes, sorry, that was my mistake. So sometimes I find if that doesn't work, what you need to do is create like a little line, press X to make a construction. And you can see this auto creates a coincident constraint. The reason that couldn't work with midpoint is because it was trying to move this point to the middle of this, which is not what we want. And it can't do that because it's got basically, think of this 20 millimeter constraint as like a chain. It's fixed. It literally cannot move any further than 20. It is stuck there, in, like as if being concreted in. So it's trying to move to the middle of this point, and it can't. The only way to do that is to delete this and then use the midpoint. But we don't actually. This is not what I'm trying to show, but this is a good indicator. This is a good show to how to go in the middle of this line if you wanted to do that. You can see it's gone fully black as well. Yeah. So. Because I didn't want that, and I'm going to go back again. I wanted to just ride on this line. We need to create that little line. And then what we can do is go to collinear, which means basically on the same line. So we select that line and select that line. Now we're on that line, essentially. And you can realize it's gone black. Now, let's say we want this circle to be on the opposite side. Are we going to make it again? No. Why would I waste my time making it again? So what I'm going to do is create a line. And we're going to hover over this until we see that triangle point, meaning the middle. Press X to go to construction, draw down the middle. We're not going to bother creating it twice, because never do something twice. What we're going to do is go to mirror. Now we're going to select the circle we want to mirror. And now the mirror line is this line that we just created. So we're going to click that. And we can see that it's creating like a little preview of where it's going to be. And we're going to click OK. So now, because it's based off a fully defined sketch and it's mirrored around this line, this is fully defined as well. So this means whatever we do to this now, this will update because it's referenced to it. So let's say we make this 50. This is also going to move in by 50 because it's a mirror. A mirror will just copy, reflect the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so let's make this back 20. And now, let's say we've finished, okay, let's just say we're going to add a fillet. A fillet is just a rounded corner, essentially. To do this in a sketch, you just select this. Unfortunately, you can't press the F key to go to fillet, which is a bit irritating, because the F key goes to, the F key refers to the 3D geometry version of fillet. But anyway, you can either click on both lines, or you can just hover into the corner and click. And then we could type something like 10. And as I mentioned before, we can right click, we can repeat fillet, and type in 10, and right click. And we can go to repeat fillet. But instead of doing that, let's call this rad equals 10. And we can't use rad because it's probably a preserved keyword. So let's put my rad or something equals 10. Now here we can type in my rad. And we're going to repeat the fillet and my rad. Okay, so obviously if you learned anything from 2 minutes ago, you realize that we probably didn't need to even do that. We could have used the mirror tool. Anyway, so what we're going to do is extrude this by pressing, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. We're going to go to finish sketch. And we're going to go to modify, and we're going to go to press pull, or we could go to there should be an option for extrude. The reason I can't find it is because I literally never use it this way, but I wanted to show you yeah, so you can see it's probably just press pull. I usually just press the letter E to go to extrude, but I think you can either press Q to go to press pull. So yeah, I would just use Q most of the time. And then we can type in something like 100. And now you can see if you shift and click in your middle mouse button, and then move your mouse, ensure your mouse button is still held down and the shift key is still held in, you can rotate around your model. So yeah, you can see that now we have a nice block. Now, as I mentioned, sketches are quite important. So if we want to make a new feature on this model, one of the ways that we'd probably do it is by creating another sketch on one of these surfaces. So to do that, what we need to do is create a new sketch. I don't usually do it this way, but I will do it for tutorial's sake. So create sketch. What surface do you want to create the sketch? You could even select the original origin planes, or you could select one of these faces. No, you can never select using this method. You can never select a circular kind of face because it's not a true plane. And well, it's not a plane. So what we're going to do is select this surface. Okay, so now the camera orients itself and it's saying, okay, what sketch do you want? So we're going to create a box. Actually, before we do that, we're going to go to the line mode, which I press L, and we're going to turn on construction by pressing X, or you can click here, and we're going to go to this line and find the triangle point. And we're going to click and we're going to find the triangle point on this line, and we're going to do the same for here. It's triangle point mean the middle, triangle point. Okay. So now what we need to do is, let's say we want to make a box, go to our 2-point rectangle. And this is one of the cases where I'd probably use the center rectangle because I want it dead in the center. So we're going to go to this middle, and this triangle means the center. And we're going to drag this out, and you notice it's dash, so we need to turn off construction. We can do this after if we need to though. And we're going to create this box and make sure it's off. Press X. And this is the wrong one. Center. And we're going to draw this out. So we're going to specify this using the tab key. We're going to type in, let's say 40 by 40. Press enter. Now this is fully defined because it's basically using these two dimensions, and the center is defined by the center point, constrained by that. So now we want to bore this hole out. So what we do is select it, press Q or press E, just lets you Q. Now what we can do is drag it back. Now it's not good practice to drag it out just something random like that, because it will screw you up in the future. Because if you ever change the size of this model, it will still be 160, and let's say you made your model 200 now, this will no longer be through the entire thing. So what we can do is select all. So no matter how long it has to be, it will make sure it will be enough to cut through the entire thing. What I tend to use a lot is 2 objects and then select the face I want to go to. Since it's always going to have this face, we can select this face. If we want to always be off in backwards angle, the backwards by, let's say we want to go, but we always want to leave a little bit of wall thickness, we can offset by about 5. We're going to have to be -5, and this will leave just about 5. No matter how much we change it in the future, if we want to change it, it will always be a 5mm thickness of wall. But since I don't want an offset, let's change that. We need to ensure that our operation is cut, and if we were going through multiple separate objects, then we need to uncheck or check the bodies. Normally, for the most part, is if you don't, you'll only ever be unchecking things you don't want cut, but you will never ever be checking things you do want cut, because they will already be selected. Anyway, so make sure that's on cut, and click to object and select this. Offset, click 0, and okay. Okay, so that's great. So now we've got a hole. Let's say we want to round these corners. We can go to modify, fillet, or press F and select this corner, press 10. And then we can hold control, click, hold control, click. So yeah, that's basically like the most basics you can do in Fusion. If you ever want to change the color of this for whatever reason, you can press A, and you can type something in. Let's say we want glossy plastic and we want blue. We can just drag that on. We got selected on body and components. If you choose just faces, it will only do a single face like that. Yeah, So yeah, so that is literally the most basic introduction to Fusion. Of course, these holes could also be created with this, but I don't really like using. I don't know. This is really best for creating screw holes, to be honest, in my opinion. But yeah, that is exactly how you can create your first little model in Fusion. So thank you for watching, and hopefully in the next tutorial we'll be looking at some, well, just more features in Fusion. I'll come up with the video title later on, but yeah, have a great day and I'll see you in the next one.